Hey, this is Aaron,
And this is Kristen.
and this is Drive Mode Show.
Aaron,
We're
how have you been?
back.
It's been a while that we've
It
done a show. We've
has.
been doing a lot of individual stuff.
We've been super busy doing a lot of fun stuff, and for you, physically painful things.
Like what?
Oh, I don't know. This little rally happens over on the west in dirt and sand.
Yeah, yeah, it was a crazy year. Here we are at the end. It's almost 2025, and now we're thinking about all of the things that we've driven and trying to remember what was the best. So, for you, what comes to mind? Like, what's one of the first things that comes to mind when you think about some of the coolest things or your favorite things that you drove this year?
So I think favorite isn't even a car. It was the Can-Am Outlander series. So those are ATVs. There's the 850 and the 1000R. Um, the reason I liked them so much is because one, I got to do it in British Columbia in the mountains, and two, I hadn't ridden an ATV in at least 20 years.
Wow.
So it was a huge amount of fun because back in those days when I drove them, you still had to shift the gears. So you still had to use your foot to shift gears. They had, compared to now, very little power. Talking like 50, 60 horsepower was a pretty big machine. Um, Now these are machines that are 850 and one and or 85 and 101 horsepower on a tiny, tiny little thing that weighs nothing.
Yeah. It makes
So,
those little increments make a big difference on ATVs and power sports.
yeah, and then they've changed some things. So there's a, instead of where the shifter used to be, you don't shift anymore. They use a CVT like most power sports machines do now. Uh, Instead, they have a small pedal that's tucked on the inside that you can hit with your big toe on the right hand side, and it brakes just the rear wheels. Keeps you from tipping, which is your primary objective when you're on an ATV. So tons of
Indeed.
fun on those things. I loved those things. What was yours?
Well, in that vein, I have to tell you, you said this Can-Am vehicle, which I do love Can-Am vehicles, and I got to drive their Pulse electric motorcycle, which is really cool. I also just had a Polaris Sportsman touring, a 570 touring, and it's an ATV with a seat on the back, but the
Mhm.
front rack can hold up to 270 pounds. So like a hunter would appreciate that. You can tow, I think something like 1,300 pounds or maybe more. And that was really fun to drive around my in-laws' ranch. Super, super powerful, but also very easy.
Yeah. Um, Tim Esterdahl, mutual friend, had one of those and really liked it as well. I'm hoping to get one pretty soon. They keep scheduling it and then moving it, but I know I'm going to get it. I'm hoping with a
Yeah,
snowplow, given the time of year now.
you're gonna like it. It's really fun. It's very easy to drive. I like that the throttle's right here at my right thumb. Brakes still here, like a bike grip. And then the clutch pedal only allows you to change it from park to drive, high and low and reverse. But yeah, that was fun. So on the power sports side, the other one well, there's two more actually that I really like that I drove this year, and I want to mention the Sea-Doo RXP-X, which is their super high powered watercraft, personal watercraft. I was doing 80 miles an hour on Lake Monroe in Florida, and I'd never driven, never driven a watercraft like that before. Or if I had, it's been like 25 years. So that was really thrilling. I was definitely nervous about the alligators in that lake. I could outrun them.
It's funny you should bring that up though, because another one of my favorites this year was the new Razor Pro series, which Polaris. So I rode those in Oregon on the beach, and the Pro R, I still had throttle left. I wasn't even pushing it all the way down, and I was going over 80 miles an hour down the beach. There's
Whoa.
so much power in those things. It's
Yeah.
nuts.
Yeah, they've evolved so much.
Yeah.
And then the other vehicle is another Polaris that I liked, and that was the Expedition, which is completely enclosed. And
Yes.
so we took that in Colorado. You remember? And we got to take these really narrow cliffside paths, and it can go anywhere. And those tires are incredibly robust.
I had one of those here at the house for a little over a month, and I'm actually working on the review for that right now. And the best way I could describe it in a nutshell is it's basically an extreme off-road SUV. Because it's enclosed, it's got heat, it's fairly quiet on the inside, it's got a lot of the comforts that you think of in a car, um, but it's an extreme off-road machine. It's made for overlanding. So it
Yep.
has a 350 or so mile range. It's it's a pretty robust machine, but it is large. The original trailer I was going to haul it with was a regular, like what you would consider a utility haul and trailer, and it would not even close to fit. Had to go get a full car hauler, and it took up the whole thing.
Oh,
It's
wow.
very large, and it wouldn't fit in
Really
my
large.
neighbor's hauler that he hauls his little two-seat side by side in because it's too tall. It's an enclosed trailer, and it's too tall for the roof. Yeah, they're way bigger than you think. Uh, but we also talk about cars, and I think one of my favorite cars this year was a Mustang GT.
Ooh,
And there's
yeah.
two reasons for that. The Mustang has never been my favorite sports car. Um, it's good, but it's not like top of my list. It's not what I would consider a favorite. But it's one of the last ones you can still get, especially the GT model, that's affordable, has a V8, so it has an eight cylinder power plant and all the beautiful noise and stuff that goes with that, and a manual transmission. Um, that's a package that you can't find anywhere else anymore in in affordable vehicles, and it's just beautiful to drive it around, even though it was in kind of a lame baby blue color. And it wasn't as cool as when I drove the Bullet model, which a few years ago was the most awesome Mustang I've ever seen in my life. Um, it was just a ton of fun because it is kind of the last of a generation there.
Yeah, and in that muscle car category, I just drove the Dodge Charger Daytona EV, and I'm not allowed to say yet what I thought of the drive, but I just think overall it's really interesting that they took the basic shape of the Challenger.
Mhm.
Now the two-door and the four-door Charger, they're both going to be called Charger. It's on the same wheelbase.
Okay.
The wheelbase is an inch longer, but the Charger two-door is still like 6 inches longer than the Charger, and it's wider. So there's more room in the back seat, more room in the cargo, and there's also going to be ICE versions. So they're not leaving their fans behind. And I think that's a
Okay.
really interesting approach. So it still looks very familiar. It's not like
Mhm.
what Ford did with the Mustang Mach E. And everybody's like, what is that? That's not a Mustang. And that it's arguable. Like I get why they did it. But for Dodge, making it look and feel familiar, I think is really going to help them.
Yeah, and also we have to remember they still have the Challenger name. So, and they're not going to just throw that away. It's going somewhere. Um, and so far, we don't know where. I know what I would like to see out of it, but I would like to see
Tell
a
me.
small sports car with a lot of power. So, Subaru BRZ, Toyota FT86
Hmm,
size, but with the Dodge treatment. So
interesting.
it's coming out with, say, a very well done Turbo 4 or simple V6, and a rear-wheel drive platform and or electric. Um, so they could do both because they have the technology. But I would love to see a small sports car holding that name. Way back in the day, Charger was the two-door muscle car to beat. That was the one that they had to slow down when they were chasing Steve McQueen because it was so much more powerful than that Mustang was. That was the one that, as you were, I've seen the videos now, the drifting. Those were back in the day, drifting like it wasn't a sport, it was how you turned corners. And those big cars were made for sliding around those corners like that. So I would really love to see the Challenger come back as something super cool.
Yeah, and shout out to Radford Racing School for giving me the instruction on how to do drag racing in this EV. I got it up to 118. And then also drifting. There's a technique to drifting that you have to know.
Hmm.
And it was so fun, and it was just so satisfying to hear it squeal across the pavement.
So I am terrible at drifting on pavement, but I can drift all day around corners and whatever else on dirt.
Huh. Okay.
Because I've done that my whole life. That's what we did on go-karts. That's what we did in our cars when nobody was looking. That's what we did in the farm truck. That's what we did. That was, um, so I've always done that. And I have fond memories. You remember the little Juke when it came out as a Nismo?
Yeah.
Um, I was
Yes.
with Steve Parrott from Nissan in that, and we were on a dirt track. And instead of going all the way around the corners, I figured out that because it was so small and light, I could just hop the corners. So I could just hit it and bounce and land on the other side and keep going. And it scared the heck out of him the first time I did it. And then after that, I had a pretty good argument for why they need a rally team. So
That's hilarious. And so you.
well,
And so now we've talked about muscle cars in both the ICE and the EV world, and that's
mhm.
going to be really interesting. But just going to the EV side for a second, if I had to pick an EV, any EV, this is going to really surprise you, I think. My favorite EV for 2024 is the Hummer EV. And the reason is
That is surprising.
it's surprising. It surprised myself, I'm telling you. The thing is a monster. It's giant. I mean, it doesn't have the best range. It's really heavy. It's ridiculous. But those are some of the reasons I love it. The turn radius is incredible.
Yeah.
Like you can make a circle in that thing with no problem at all. You can turn corners. Even parking it is not too difficult. I found that parking it was a lot easier than I expected it to. And it's just so fun.
Is it? I imagine as far as parking and things like that, it's probably similar to when you're in like a Mercedes or Genesis vehicle that has the rear wheel steering. So it turns a lot sharper than you think it would, given the size, which takes a little bit of getting used to, but you get used to it really quick in those
Really
vehicles.
quick.
So I
Yeah.
imagine in the Hummer, it's the same. I haven't driven one. Um, I don't know why, other than when I was offered one when they first came out, Chevy wanted me to tell them what I was going to do with it, and I was like, "That's not how this works." Um, it's editorially, I'm not giving everything up to you. So I just responded with, I won't wreck it like that YouTuber guy. Cause like as soon as they came out, that guy hadn't had it 10 minutes and he destroyed it. Um, and I was like, which is part of the reason that I think they were asking. Um, but I was like, yeah, I don't do that. I don't tell you what I'm going to do with the vehicle and how I'm going to feel about it up front. That's not how this works. So, so I've never actually driven one. Um,
You
Interestingly,
must.
though, Rivian just entered the press fleet here. So I
Mm.
will be getting some Rivians, probably one of each sometime early next year. So that's
Now I'll be
cool.
interested. I'll be interested to hear how you feel about that because I thought the drive in the R1T is excellent. All the controls are like driving an alien. Like everything is
Yeah.
so different. And even locking the car, I had to Google it to see how you use this card thing.
Um, I have the Silverado EV in a couple of weeks. So I'll make sure to do a video of that for the channel because that's kind of the new upcomer right now. That's the
Right.
one that people are talking about. And really the only actual competition for the F-150 Lightning because the Cybertruck really doesn't count. Um, so Ram's truck doesn't come out until next year, right? So, and that's not a fully electric. It's a range extended. So I think it's funny how they called it the REV because REEV is a term they can't that they can't trademark.
Right. Right.
But as far as electrics go, my favorite so far has actually been the uh, the Kia EV9. Um, And that's because it's a really well done three-row family vehicle.
It is.
Happens to be an electric one. And it's just, I mean, Kia, they're pretty good at hitting the nail on the head and pounding it right home and not missing. And this is just another example of them pulling that off. It's just such a really well done vehicle. Um, and now that Hyundai has theirs, I can't wait to see the Genesis model,
Ooh,
because
yes.
I know that's going to be just, I mean, I'm not sucking up to Wendy Orthman or anything, but that's going to be perfection. And that's, and that's a market where EVs really do need to penetrate. Pickup trucks are one thing, and yeah, they're the biggest selling vehicles and all of that, but we got a ways to go before pickup trucks as an electric vehicle are popular, because of the demographics of said market. But with family electrics, with family-based vehicles, that's the next market, and that's the one that if EVs hit home, they'll do really well. Chevy put a lot of uh, they put a lot of their kind of future on the Equinox EV and the Blazer EVs. Those two vehicles really need to do well for Chevy to have an EV future, and they did really well making those vehicles. They are very good.
And
Um,
affordable.
yeah,
I
and
mean, relatively
affordable.
affordable.
And I will say I have the Equinox EV and I have the Equinox Gas right now. They're not the same vehicle at all. The Equinox is bigger, or the EV is bigger, so it's a larger vehicle overall. It's closer in size to the Traverse, so and that's part of the platform. It's because that platform is modular, so that they can make bigger and bigger vehicles off of it. And I To get the batteries in it that they wanted, they couldn't have made it smaller. Um, so the two vehicles are totally unrelated. And the regular gas Equinox, it's a good vehicle, but it's nothing compared to the electric version, um, in terms of just comfort and ride quality and all the other good stuff.
Well, to your point too about family vehicles, I think Volkswagen did a commendable job on the ID Buzz, bringing back their bus as an EV. I was really surprised by how much I liked it because Volkswagens in general, I'm like, they're good cars, but
Mhm.
this one really thrilled me. So I hope it does well. I will be
Mhm.
interested to see what the uptake will be. I actually saw one in the wild yesterday here
Oh,
in Austin.
wow. I think it's mostly going to be an enthusiast buy. The reason I say that is price tag. I think
Yeah, for
it
sure.
needs to be at least 10,000 cheaper if it's going to be competitive as a family vehicle, regular everyday drive. Um, and that could happen down the line. Um,
Fair.
and right now, there are going to be a lot of buyers because, I mean, look at it. it's, it's nostalgia in
It is
one
so fun. It's
four
so
wheels.
colorful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
Um,
amazing.
Moving to something else, I had a lot of off-road ready vehicles this year, and I had a couple of favorites. The Bronco Everglades remains a favorite, and it's not because anything changed. There's nothing really new on it this year. It's because it's the affordable off-road Bronco. Um, every Once you get past that package, you're moving into the 60 and $70,000 range. I really like the Bronco Raptor, but not I don't $80,000 like it. And so, this is an affordable version that has a lot of off-road goodies on it, pretty much everything you need, and just does most everything competently or well. It's just really good. The other one that I really liked is actually a Chevy product, the GMC Canyon AT4X. And it's expensive for the size of the truck, but I don't think I've driven anything that was more off-road ready than that. The ZR2 is similar. You can get so they're pretty much the same idea. You get the AEV package if you want, whatever. But the off-road capability of that truck was astounding. So,
Yes, I agree. There was a team from Chevy in one of those Z02s in the Rebel Rally.
ooh,
And
cool.
of course, there was a whole slew of Ford Broncos, and
Yeah.
they performed incredibly well. Of course, I drove the Ram RHO. Jill and I, and that was thrilling. It performed so beautifully.
Mhm.
The only trouble we had with that truck, and that was like the first truck that media had ever driven, and the only trouble that we had was with the tire, and it was
Yeah.
the front driver's side tire. We had to change it after the very last checkpoint, and that was quite a task because it's a super heavy tire. Three other teams pulled over and helped us change it. Otherwise, we would have probably struggled in that environment on that terrain, jacking it up, pulling the tire off, all the steps. But we got it done.
And on the last day, and you're probably out of power bars.
Oh, we were out of power mentally, physically. We were ready to roll back to camp, and then we ended up all going back in the dark. So off-roading in the dark is a little bit terrifying,
Mhm.
but I'm here. I made
Ram, you made it and you finished. So
it.
there you
Finished.
go. Speaking of Ram, I haven't driven the RHO yet, but I had the 2025 Ram Rebel, which has been my favorite Ram model for a long time, because it's a good general off-roader and it's not expensive. It keeps all the truck capabilities, so you don't lose a bunch of towing or anything because of the off-road packaging that you do with like some other vehicles, Ford, where you go to a really off-road package, suddenly you lose 1,000 pounds of towing and whatever else. It doesn't have those issues. It's still a truck. It's not lifted so much that you can't pull a standard trailer and that kind of stuff. Uh, it just has all the general off-road use goodies that you need, and that's it. It's not, so you're not going to go to Moab and climb rocks. You're not going to, it's not made for that. But people that do that, they build vehicles for that. They don't just show up in a factory vehicle and try it. Not very often.
No.
Sometimes they do, and it usually says Toyota on it, and they usually roll it. But it's, I lived in Moab for a while. That's what happens. But um, because when you do those sorts of things, you do need specialized equipment. But it's the Ram Rebel is just a nice all-around vehicle truck that has, and then Ram's interiors. I don't I don't know how much you can say about it without sounding like they've paid us off because they're just so great.
I feel the same way about Genesis. I'll
Yeah,
recommend Genesis a lot. And my friends are like, is Genesis paying you? I'm like, no. If you are not driven a Genesis and you're not looking at it, you are missing out.
yes, yeah. It's just one of those things where you can describe the details and talk about it, but you really just need to go sit in one. Um, if you back to back any other truck brand and then get into a Ram, you'll immediately see the differences and understand why we're saying so many good things about the Ram interior. There's good points about the other ones too, but the Ram interior just all the way around is super ergonomic and comfortable and well done. Um, so
So the bottom line is we have a lot of favorites, but we've
we
driven
do.
a lot of cars. I mean, each of us has driven at least 52 cars,
Yeah, I
in the year.
actually am on track to hit my 100 for the year. Um,
Whoa.
I usually, and that's not including any of the like first impression drives where you go somewhere and you drive it for a day. These are all loans that came to my house and I had them for a week,
Wow. My
because I
goodness.
often double up. And because I mean, this is literally what I do for a living. And I put, I drive 400 and 500 miles a week as a regular thing.
Wow.
Welcome to me. Uh,
Yeah.
I like to drive. That's why I do this job.
That's right. Trust your opinion.
If I could just drive the vehicles and never have to write a word about them or edit another video ever, I would just do that because it's great.
Well, good luck with that. Meanwhile, I'll keep
Meanwhile,
reading your reviews because you have a lot of experience.
so I'm
Yes.
I'm doing a new video format because of the winter and wind and other things where I'm not trying to stand in front of the vehicle and talk about it anymore. Um, I'm doing video and still photography like I always have, and then I'm narrating from right here, um, and talking about it with a little bubble head, because working around weather and stuff is the big reason that a lot of vehicles that I get don't ever get a video. Um,
Right.
I just can't do it, and I don't
You got a
have
good audio.
right. And nobody wants to see me standing there with my hair blown in my face the whole time, and my hat flying and the camera falling over because it got blown. My camera, I am amazed it still works because it's been blown over multiple times. It has scratches and all kinds of yeah, because it doesn't matter how big your tripod is. When the wind hits 50, things are falling down.
Well, I'll be watching. I like the new format, and I'm sure we'll be back with a Christmas show very soon.
Yes, very soon. Yeah, our picks for what you should put a bow on. That'll be fun.
And not just Lexus.
Yeah. I know they probably own like the trademark for that in a commercial or something, but we're gonna do it with some other ones.
Yes, we will.
Awesome. Well, this was fun. I'm glad we finally got to get back together for another show.
Yes. Hey, everybody. We'll be back again. Meanwhile, keep watching our videos. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you soon.
Alrighty. This is Aaron,
This is Kristen.
and this is Drive Mode Show.